Princess Zara was born different. From the moment she opened her eyes in the royal palace of the Caliph Empire, her body shimmered with light. A barrier of pure energy wrapped around her small form like a second skin. It pulsed and shifted, glowing, faintly with colors that no one else in the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire's priests declared her a miracle. They said the barrier was proof she was chosen by destiny, blessed by the ancestors, untouchable and divine. No blade could pierce the barrier. No blaster could burn through it. No hand could touch her. Even her own mother, the Empress, could never hold her child. Every attempt ended with a hum of energy and a wall of invisible force pushing away even the softest touch. The Empire gave her a title, the Untouchable Star. Zara grew up with the weight of this title. Everywhere she went, people bowed, whispered prayers, and treated her like she was more than a person, like she was a living symbol. But behind the glowing light of the barrier, Zara felt trapped. She could not feel warmth, could not hug her family, could not share in the closeness of her people. The barrier kept her safe, but it also kept her alone. As she grew older, her loneliness grew heavier. The Empire spoke of her as a weapon as much as a blessing. No assassin can harm her, the generals boasted. No poison can reach her. She is the shield of our people. But Zara did not feel like a shield. She felt like a prisoner. The galaxy feared the Caliph Empire, and Zara's existence only made them fear more. But there was one species that the Empire had never taken seriously: humans. The Empire saw humans as a young species, not fully advanced, reckless, and unpredictable. They were clever, yes, but still new to galactic politics. To the great powers, Earth was a curiosity, not a rival. That changed the day Zara's ship crossed paths with a human vessel. Zara's diplomatic cruiser was traveling through neutral space. It was a vast ship of silver and blue, with sharp wings and glowing engines. Inside, everything was polished, elegant, and guarded by soldiers in ceremonial armor. Zara sat in her chamber, watching the stars through a transparent wall. She often sat there staring out at the galaxy she could never touch. "Princess," one of her guards said, "there is a transmission. A human vessel is requesting assistance. Their engines are failing." Zara raised an eyebrow. "Humans? Out here? Yes, Princess. Their ship is drifting close to a gravity well. Without help, they will be destroyed." Normally, the Caliph Empire did not waste time helping weaker species. But Zara was curious. She had heard little of humans beyond reports of their strange resilience, their short lives, and their reckless bravery. "Bring them aboard," Zara ordered. "Let us see these humans." The human vessel was pulled in with tractor beams. It was smaller, rougher in design, not nearly as graceful as a Caliph cruiser, but it had strength in its form, as if built to survive disaster. When the airlock opened, Zara expected to see desperate, trembling faces. Instead, the humans stepped forward with steady eyes. They wore simple suits, patched and scarred, but they held themselves with quiet confidence. Among them was Ethan Cole. He was not the commander of the human vessel, not even the highest rank. He was a mechanic, an engineer who worked with machines more than people. His hair was dark, his hands calloused, and his eyes carried a restless spark. When he walked into the chamber where Zara waited, he stopped short, staring at the glow. Around her, "What is that?" he asked before anyone could silence him. Gasps filled the room. No one spoke to the untouchable star so directly. Guards tensed, hands on weapons, ready to strike this human down, but Zara lifted a hand, halting them. "It is my barrier," she said coolly. "No living being may touch me. It is a gift of my people." Ethan tilted his head, studying the shimmer of light that flowed around her like liquid glass. "Does it hurt?" Zara blinked. No one had ever asked her that. People asked how strong it was, how it worked, how it protected her. But no one asked if it hurt. "No," she said slowly. "It does not hurt. But Isolates. Ethan's gaze lingered. Looks more like a cage than a gift. The guards hissed in outrage. One stepped forward, ready to strike him down. But again, Zara raised her hand. For some reason, she wanted to hear more. You see a cage where others see protection, she said. I work with machines, Ethan replied. And machines that lock you in are still locks, no matter how shiny they look. Zara's lips curved, slightly. It had been years since someone spoke to her so plainly. Later, as the humans were given quarters and food, Zara asked to see the one called Ethan again. Her advisors protested. Princess, you must not lower yourself. This human is reckless, disrespectful. Disrespectful, Zara repeated. Or simply, honest. Against their warnings, she summoned Ethan to her chamber. He came reluctantly, wiping grease from his hands. You wanted to see me? He asked. Yes, Zara said. You looked at my barrier as though you saw more than others do. Explain. Ethan scratched the back of his neck. I'm not a scientist, but when I saw it, it reminded me of an energy field. Except it wasn't stable. It pulsed, like it was reacting. Zara's eyes narrowed. Reacting to what? He shrugged. That's the thing. Most fields react to pressure or heat or power sources. Yours looked like it was alive. No alien scientist had ever dared say such a thing. To them, her shield was wholly unquestionable. But this human looked at it like a puzzle, something to be solved. You think you can understand it? Zara asked. Maybe, Ethan said. If you let me. The words hung in the air. Zara's guards bristled. But Zara felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. For the next days, Ethan worked near her chamber, studying the readings from the barrier. He used tools far simpler than the Empire's devices, but his mind worked differently. Where Caliph scientists used logic and reverence, Ethan used curiosity and stubbornness. He noticed patterns in the light, small fluctuations that repeated like a code. When Zara was calm, the pulses slowed. When she was angry, they quickened. When she laughed, they flickered with a strange rhythm. It's tied to you, Ethan said. Not just around you. It's part of you, like it's listening. Zara's heart raced. No one had ever spoken of the barrier this way. To her people, it was a wall. To Ethan, it was a voice. The days passed slowly aboard the Caliph cruiser. Princess Zara remained in her chamber, surrounded by her usual guards and advisors. Yet there was something new in her routine now. She found herself waiting for the strange human, named Ethan, to appear. He was not like the others who visited her. Every alien scientist who had studied her barrier before had treated it with fear or reverence. They whispered prayers, bowed, or recited old texts about her being chosen. Ethan, however, treated the barrier like a puzzle he was eager to solve. T-30. First, her advisors had objected. This human has no respect for our traditions, one counselor warned. He calls your holy shield a cage. Yes, another added. He dares to see you as something less than divine. But Zara had silenced them. Perhaps, she said, it is time someone saw me as more than divine. Perhaps it is time someone saw me as a person. The words had shocked them, but she did not care. Ethan arrived each day with his simple human tools. Scanners patched with tape, wires and devices far less elegant than Caliph instruments. The guards mocked him silently, whispering about how crude and primitive human technology was. But Zara watched carefully. Where Caliph scientists used sleek machines that produced neat graphs, Ethan relied on instinct and improvisation. He would tap the air near her barrier, then watch his scanner flicker. He would hum softly, almost like he was listening for an echo. Sometimes he even spoke directly to the barrier, as if expecting it to answer. What are you doing? Zara asked one day, amused as he held a small metal rod against the shimmering light around her. Listening, Ethan replied. To what? The rhythm. Every system has one. Machines, engines, even energy fields. They all have a beat like a heart. I just have to match it. Zara tilted her head. You speak of it as if it were alive. Ethan looked at her seriously. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not just a shield, it's a part of you, and if that's true, it's not unbreakable, it's just misunderstood. Zahra's breath caught. The words felt dangerous. To her people, her barrier was perfect, eternal, unchangeable. But to this human, it was something that could be unlocked. Careful, human, one of her guards snapped. Your words border on blasphemy. Ethan smirked. I don't care about blasphemy, I care about the truth. The guard's hand went to his weapon, but Zahra lifted hers in warning. Enough, she said firmly. The guard obeyed, though. His eyes burned with anger. Zahra turned back to Ethan. And what truth do you think you see? Ethan held up his scanner, its lights blinking. That your barrier isn't flawless, it flickers. It reacts to you, your emotions, your voice, your breathing. You think it keeps everything out, but maybe it's waiting for the right thing to let in. That night, Zahra lay awake in her chamber, staring at the ceiling. His words echoed in her mind. It's waiting for the right thing to let in. Was that possible? Could it be that the barrier was not meant to keep her alone forever? That there was a key? She remembered her childhood, the times she had cried, only to see the barrier flare like fire. The moments she laughed, only for the glow to soften, almost shimmer with joy. Perhaps she had been blind all along. Perhaps the barrier was not just protection, but something tied deeply to her own being. And if so, why had no one else ever seen it? The next day, Ethan returned with a bold idea. I think your barrier works like a lock, he said, kneeling by his tools. But not a lock you break with force, a lock you open with resonance. Zahra raised an eyebrow. Explain. Every lock has a key. Every system has a pattern. If I can match the frequency of your barrier, find its rhythm, it might weaken. Not enough to vanish, but enough to flicker. Her guards immediately protested. Absolutely not. If you weaken the barrier, the princess could be harmed. But Zahra held up her hand. Let him continue. Ethan met her eyes. I won't hurt you. I just want to understand. Something in his voice felt honest, steady. Zahra gave a small nod. Ethan set up a small device, nothing more than wires attached, to a humming coil. He adjusted the dials until the coil gave off a faint vibration. The barrier shimmered faintly in response. Zahra's eyes widened. It reacted. Ethan grinned. Told you, it's alive in a way. It doesn't like some frequencies, but it responds to others. He tuned the coil higher. The barrier pulsed brighter. Then he tuned lower, and the barrier flickered faintly, almost transparent for a single heartbeat. Gasps filled the room. The guards rushed forward, weapons drawn. Enough! Stop this madness! But Zahra held them back, her voice firm. Stand down. Her gaze remained fixed on Ethan. Do it again. Ethan adjusted the dial. Once more the barrier flickered, just for a moment, like a veil fluttering in the wind. And for the briefest instant, Zahra felt something she had never felt before. Warmth. It was faint, only a whisper against her skin, but it was there. For the first time in her life, she felt the air of the room brush against her hand. Her heart raced. The barrier returned instantly, solid and unyielding once more. But Zahra's hands trembled as she lifted them to her lips. I felt it, she whispered. Her guards looked horrified. Her advisors began arguing loudly. This is dangerous. If the barrier fails, the princess will be vulnerable. But Zahra silenced them with a sharp glare. Her eyes locked on Ethan. You were right. It is not flawless. Ethan nodded. It's not a curse. It's not a blessing. It's just waiting to be unlocked. After the experiment, Zahra sat alone in her chamber. She could not stop thinking about that single heartbeat of warmth. It had been so brief, yet it had shaken her entire world. For years, she had believed she could never feel touch. Now one human had proven otherwise. Why had no one else ever seen it? Why had no scientist, no priest, no scholar dared to look at the barrier as Ethan had? The answer was simple. because they never wanted to. To them, her barrier was a symbol of power. To them, her isolation was useful, but Ethan had no reason to worship her, no reason to fear her. He simply wanted to know, and that made him dangerous. The Empire soon learned of what had happened. Reports spread quickly. The untouchable star's shield flickered. A human tampered with the divine gift. Whispers became rumors, and rumors became fear. Zara's mother, the Empress, sent a direct message. Her voice was cold, commanding. "My daughter, you must end this foolishness at once. The barrier is sacred. Do not allow this human to defile it." Zara bowed her head but said nothing. When the message ended, she turned to her reflection in the chamber wall. For the first time, she did not see an untouchable star. She saw a lonely girl who had finally felt a touch of freedom, and she knew she could not turn back. That evening, Ethan was summoned once more. He entered cautiously, sensing the tension in the air. Zara dismissed her guards, leaving only the two of them in the chamber. The barrier glowed faintly around her, a constant reminder of the wall between them. "You've caused great unrest," Zara said quietly. Ethan frowned. "Because I told the truth?" "Because you revealed what others fear," she replied. "If my barrier is not perfect, if it can be broken, then my people's image of power shatters with it." Ethan crossed his arms. Then maybe it's time they stop worshipping an illusion. Zara looked at him for a long moment, then she whispered almost too softly to hear. "Do it again?" Ethan blinked. "You want me to—" "Yes." Her eyes burned with determination. "I need to know more. I need to feel more." For the first time in her life, Zara was choosing her own path. Princess Zara had lived her whole life surrounded by silence. Silence of touch, silence of closeness, silence of freedom. But after Ethan's experiment, that silence was broken. One heartbeat. That was all it took. One flicker in her barrier. One moment of warmth against her hand, and her world changed. For days after, Zara could think of nothing else. The sensation haunted her like a dream she could not wake from. Her advisors begged her to stop seeing the human. Her guards insisted he was dangerous. Her mother, the Empress, had commanded her to end it. But Zara could not. She wanted to feel it again. She needed to. Ethan stood in her chamber once more, tools spread across the floor. His sleeves were rolled up, his hair messy, his eyes full of restless energy. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly. Zara sat on her throne-like chair, hands folded in her lap, the barrier shimmering around her. "Yes." Ethan hesitated. "The last time the flicker was small. If I push harder, it could, I don't know, backfire. I don't want to hurt you." Zara smiled faintly. "For the first time in my life, I am willing to take that risk." Her words startled him. For all her elegance and composure, Ethan saw a flicker of desperation in her eyes. She wasn't just curious, she was yearning. "All right," he said, adjusting his device. "Let's try again." The device hummed to life. A low vibration filled the room, and the barrier shimmered. Zara held her breath as Ethan tuned the coil higher and higher. The glow brightened, pulsed, and then flickered. Her breath caught. Again, warmth touched her skin. This time it lingered longer. 2 heartbeats, maybe 3. She gasped softly, and the barrier snapped back solid once more. But it was enough. She looked at Ethan with wide eyes. "I felt it again." Ethan smiled, but there was tension in his face. "Yeah, but it's not stable. It's tied to you somehow. When you're calm, it's stronger. When your emotions spike, it weakens." Zara finished. "Exactly." That truth shook her. All her life she had believed her shield was perfect, a wall of unbreakable power, but now she knew it was connected to her own heart. Not divine, not flawless, just alive, as Ethan had said. "Does this mean," she whispered, "that I can control it?" "Maybe," Ethan said. "Maybe it's been waiting for you, to learn how." Word spread quickly through the ship. Whispers traveled faster than light. The untouchable star's barrier is failing. The human is breaking it. Soldiers eyed Ethan with suspicion. Advisors demanded he be removed. Zara's guards began following his every step, ready to kill him at the first sign of betrayal. One evening, as Zara walked the quiet halls of her ship, she overheard two guards speaking. "If the barrier fails, she will no longer be divine," one muttered. "The people will lose faith, and the Empire will lose its symbol of power," the other replied darkly. "Better the human never leaves this ship alive." Zara's blood ran cold. She hurried back to her chamber, summoning Ethan at once. When he arrived, she told him what she had heard. Ethan frowned. "Figures. People don't like it when their illusions get shattered." "You are in danger," Zara warned. "They will not let you continue this." Ethan crossed his arms. "And what about you? If they see your shield break, they'll call you weak, maybe even unfit to rule." Zara looked down. "I know." There was silence between them, heavy and sharp. Finally, Ethan said, "So what do you want to do?" Zara lifted her head. Her voice was steady even as her heart raced. "I want to continue. I must. For the first time I feel alive. I will not return to silence." Ethan stared at her, then slowly nodded. "Then we'll figure it out, together." Those words warmed her more than any flicker of the barrier had. The next day, Ethan began a new experiment. Instead of using his device to force the barrier to flicker, he wanted Zara to try controlling it herself. "Your shield reacts to your emotions," he explained. "When you're calm, it's solid. When you feel something strong, it weakens. That means it's listening to you whether you realize it or not." Zara frowned. "But I have no control over my emotions." "Then we practice," Ethan said simply. He stood before her holding a small scanner. "Focus on breathing. Slow, even, calm." Zara closed her eyes, inhaling and exhaling slowly. The barrier shimmered gently, steady and strong. "Now," Ethan said softly, "think of something that makes you angry." Instantly the barrier flared, glowing bright and sharp. "Good," Ethan said, watching the readings. "Now think of something that makes you laugh." Zara blinked. "Laugh?" "Yeah," Ethan said with a grin. "You know, joy. Humor. Come on, princess, you've got to have something funny in that royal head of yours." She gave him a flat look. "Nothing about my life has been funny." Ethan's grin faded slightly. Then he leaned closer. "Then maybe it's time we change that." To her shock, he crossed his eyes and stuck out his tongue like a fool. Zara gasped, then burst into laughter before she could stop herself. It was awkward, rusty, but real. And the barrier flickered wildly. Ethan's eyes widened. "There. Did you feel it?" Zara clutched her stomach, still laughing. "Yes." For a brief moment, she had felt the cool air of the chamber on her face. Her laughter faded into breathless wonder. "It works. It truly works." But their progress did not go unnoticed. That night, Ethan was walking back to his quarters when he was cornered by 3 guards. Their weapons gleamed, their faces cold. "You are meddling in things you do not understand," one hissed. "The princess must remain untouchable. If you break her, you break the Empire." Ethan stood his ground. Maybe the Empire needs to be broken. The guard raised his weapon, but before he could strike, Zara appeared. Her barrier flared around her like a storm. "Stand down," she commanded, her voice like steel. The guards froze. No one dared disobey the untouchable star. Slowly, they lowered their weapons and backed away. When they were gone, Zara turned to Ethan. "You see now? They will kill you if they can." Ethan shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time someone wanted me dead." Her eyes softened. "Why risk yourself for me?" Ethan looked at her seriously. "Because you're not a symbol to me. You're a person. And no person deserves to live trapped behind a wall." Zara's breath caught. For so long she had been worshipped, feared, obeyed, but never seen until now. Over the next few days, their secret experiments continued. With Ethan's guidance, Zara learned to sense the barrier's connection to her emotions. Slowly, she gained small moments of control, a flicker here, a shimmer there. Each time, the barrier weakened just enough for her to feel a whisper of the world outside. One evening, as Ethan adjusted his coil, Zara reached out instinctively. For a heartbeat, the barrier faltered. Her fingers brushed his hand. It was brief, so brief she wondered if she imagined it. But she saw the shock in Ethan's eyes and she knew it was real. Her heart pounded. Her hand trembled. She had touched another living being for the first time in her life. But joy turned quickly to fear. The Empire had learned too much. Reports flooded in from spies and advisors. The human is dangerous. The princess is compromised. The untouchable star is cracking. The Empress herself sent a final order. The human must be removed, at once. Zara read the message in silence, her hands trembling. If she obeyed, Ethan would be executed. If she disobeyed, she would defy her empire. The Caliph Empire did not forgive easily. When reports of Ethan Cole's experiments reached the council, the response was immediate and severe. Orders came down through every level of command. The human must be restrained. The untouchable star must be protected at all costs. Zara had anticipated the reaction. Yet even she had not imagined the intensity. Her once loyal advisors now whispered of treason. Her guards glared at Ethan with cold, lethal eyes. The corridors of the ship buzzed with tension, and the air seemed heavier with every passing hour. The human engineer, however, remained calm in the way that made him both infuriating and fascinating to Zara. "You've made them angry," she said quietly, watching him work on his small scanner in her private chamber. Ethan looked up, brushing grease from his hands. "And they should be angry. They're afraid of change. They've built a cage around you, princess. I'm just poking at the lock." Zara's lips curved into a faint smile. "A cage is meant to keep prisoners safe. They will call you reckless, foolish, or worse." Ethan shrugged. "Then I guess I'm all three." She stared at him, her gaze sharper than any blade. "Do you understand the danger?" "I do," he said. "But danger is different from fear. Fear keeps you stuck. Danger can be useful." The first act of defiance came quietly, almost unnoticed. A guard stormed into the chamber, red-faced and furious. "You are endangering the princess. You will be taken for questioning immediately." Zara's barrier flared brightly, a shield of pure light that made the guard step back instinctively. "Leave him," she commanded, her voice like thunder in the silent room. The guard hesitated, then obeyed. Ethan looked at her, impressed but wary. "That was, intense." "I have protected you," Zara said. "But they will not stop at warnings. Soon they may try to remove you from the ship entirely. You must be ready." By the next morning, the Empire escalated its response. Orders were issued to detain Ethan at once. Security teams moved silently through the cruiser, searching corridors and chambers. Zara watched from her throne-like chair as her soldiers prepared to drag him away. She stood abruptly. "Stop this now!" The commander of the security detail, a burly alien with 4 arms, hesitated. "Princess, they have direct orders from the Empress herself. This human is a threat." Zara lifted her hand. Her barrier glowed fiercely, bright, enough to light the entire chamber. The air hummed with energy. "Threat?" she asked coldly. "He has never threatened me. If anything, he has saved me from loneliness and ignorance. If you touch him, you touch me, and I will not allow it." The commander swallowed hard. No one had ever spoken to him like that. The untouchable star, a living weapon, had drawn her line. That night, Zara could not sleep. She walked the quiet corridors of her ship, feeling the glow of her barrier flicker with her emotions. Fear, anger, determination, and hope. Ethan followed quietly, sensing her turmoil. "They can't take me without trying to touch you," he said softly. She shook her head. "It is worse than that. If they fail, they will not stop. They may try to trap me, isolate me, or worse. The Empire cannot bear to see me changed. They cannot bear to see the barrier weaken. He fell silent, letting her words settle. Then he asked gently, "Do you regret letting me touch it?" Zara considered him. Her life had been one long prison of isolation. "No," she whispered. "I have felt more alive in one heartbeat than in all my years behind this shield. And if the Empire cannot understand that, then it is their weakness, not mine." The first confrontation came swiftly. Ethan had been working in the chamber when guards burst in, weapons raised. "You are under arrest," one shouted. Zara's barrier flared instantly, a dazzling wall of energy that pushed the soldiers back. One screamed as the shield repelled him. Others froze in place, unsure how to proceed. Zara stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You will not touch him. He is under my protection." The guards hesitated. No one dared disobey the princess directly. But the tension in the room was electric. Ethan stepped forward as well. "I'm not leaving. If they want to stop me, they'll have to stop both of us." The barrier shimmered, responding to his calm determination and her anger. The energy pulsed, bright and alive. It was no longer a passive shield. It reacted, almost like it understood their resolve. The council, learning of the incident, declared a formal trial. Zara refused to leave her chamber. "If you wish to judge me," she said, "then you will do so in truth. Not behind lies, not behind fear. I will face the council." Ethan looked at her, astonished. "Are you sure?" "I am," she said firmly. "If my people cannot understand, then they do not deserve my silence. And you? You deserve to stand with me." So together they walked to the council chamber. The room was massive, lined with alien counselors and generals, their eyes cold and calculating. The air was heavy with the weight of judgment. Zara stood, tall, her barrier glowing faintly around her. Ethan stood beside her, hands clenched, ready for whatever came next. The council began to speak. Their voices were sharp, accusing. "Princess Zara, you have allowed a human to tamper with your divine shield. You have endangered the Empire," another shouted. Zara raised her hand. The room fell silent. "You speak of danger, yet you have never asked what it means to live trapped behind a barrier that isolates every touch, every feeling, every connection. This human did not harm me. He has shown me something no one else could: hope, warmth, freedom. And for that, he is not guilty. I am the only one who decides my fate." A murmur ran through the council. Some counselors shook their heads, outraged. Others whispered, uncertain, as if Zara's words had struck a chord they could not explain. Ethan, standing at her side, placed a hand near hers, not touching, but close enough that the barrier flickered faintly in recognition. Zara felt the pulse, the whisper of energy that responded to his presence. It was a reminder. The barrier was no longer just hers. It was alive with possibility. The council deliberated for hours. Guards whispered. Advisors argued. The Empress herself sent a message demanding strict punishment. But in the end, Zara spoke again. "If my shield is to remain sacred, then let it be sacred not as a prison, but as a part of me. If my people cannot understand, then they will learn. I will not return to silence. I will not return to loneliness. And I will not allow harm to come to one who has only given me life." For a moment, the room was completely still. Then one elder counselor, the oldest in the room, spoke quietly. "Perhaps the princess is wiser than we gave her credit. Perhaps the shield is not merely a wall but a teacher. Perhaps it is time we learn." The words rippled through the chamber. The tension did not vanish, but the anger faded slightly. After the council, Zara returned to her chamber. Ethan followed cautiously, sensing her exhaustion. "You did it," he said softly. "You stood up to them. You could have been overruled, or worse." Zara shook her head. "No. I stood for something more important. I stood for me and for you. If the Empire cannot accept change, then it is their failure, not ours." Ethan smiled faintly. "You're amazing, Princess. I've never seen anyone stand like that. She laughed softly, a sound that made her barrier shimmer gently. "I've learned from the best, haven't I?" He chuckled. "Maybe. Or maybe you've learned from yourself." For a while they sat together in silence, letting the moment linger. The flicker in her barrier pulsed faintly, responding to her calm, her trust, her newfound courage. For the first time, Zara realized something she had never known. The greatest strength of the barrier was not in keeping others out, but in letting her choose who could reach her. The Caliph Empire had never faced defiance like this. Every officer, advisor, and counselor was watching Princess Zira. Every eye in the galaxy that revered her, feared her, or whispered her name trembled with curiosity. The untouchable star had been untouchable for centuries, a symbol of power no one could challenge. But now, she was choosing differently. It started quietly, with a single heartbeat. Zira sat in her chamber, her barrier glowing softly. Ethan was beside her, adjusting his device. He no longer tinkered with it aggressively. Now he merely guided her, teaching her to feel, to listen, and to understand the rhythm of the energy that surrounded her. "Close your eyes," he whispered. "Don't think about the shield. Think about yourself, what you want, what you need." Zara did as he said. She inhaled deeply, feeling the air, the hum of the ship, the faint pulse of the stars outside. The barrier pulsed with her heartbeat. "You feel that?" Ethan asked softly. Yes," Zara whispered. "It's alive. It listens. It's me. That's it. Don't fight it. Let it respond to you." She focused on the warmth she had felt before, the brief touch, the whisper of connection, the small heartbeat of freedom. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out with her mind, her spirit, and her heart. The barrier flared. Brilliant light filled the chamber, bright enough to reflect off every polished surface. It pulsed like a living thing, strong and powerful, yet not violent. The glow wrapped around her like a cloak, alive with intention. Ethan's eyes widened. "You're doing it. You're controlling it." Zara felt a tremor of exhilaration. For the first time, the shield responded not just to her emotions but to her will. It was no longer a wall that kept everyone away. It was a part of her, and now she could choose who it protected and who it allowed near. The Empire would test her soon. That much was inevitable. As if summoned by her thoughts, the communication channels lit up. The Empress herself spoke, her voice cold and commanding. "Zara, stop this at once. The human must be removed. Your shield is sacred. You are not permitted to experiment." Zara raised her hand, and the barrier flared in response, pulsing with energy that seemed almost alive. "No," she said firmly. "I will not stop. The shield is mine, and I will decide how it is used. You may no longer command me from afar." The Empress's face appeared on the screen, furious. "Do you defy your mother, the ruler of the Caliph Empire?" "Yes," Zara said, "because I am no longer the princess who only obeys. I am Zara, and I choose." The screen flickered, and the Empress's eyes narrowed. "So be it. If you continue, you will face consequences." Zara let the channel close. Consequences had never frightened her before. Now, with control over her shield and the support of someone who had shown her trust, she felt unstoppable. That night, the council made its move. A squad of elite guards arrived, weapons aimed at Ethan, ready to drag him away by force. The room was silent, waiting for the storm. Zara stepped forward. The barrier flared to life around her, blindingly bright, humming with energy that resonated through the entire ship. It wasn't just a shield anymore. It was an extension of her will. "Do not touch him," she commanded. The leader of the squad hesitated. The barrier pulsed, bright and alive, almost like it was breathing. It pressed outward with a force that made even the most disciplined soldiers stagger. Ethan took a cautious step forward. "Princess, I can handle this," she said. The Soldiers tried to advance. The barrier responded. Each step they took met resistance. The air vibrated, their weapons almost useless against the living energy. Some screamed as their suits overloaded with static. Others simply fell back, dazed. For the first time, the Empire saw not just a princess, but a force of nature. Zera's pulse quickened. She let the barrier respond to her emotions. Fear for Ethan, anger at those who would harm him, determination to break free from the chains of tradition. The shield flared brighter than ever, wrapping around Ethan as well. He looked at her in awe. "You're amazing." "I'm doing what I should have done long ago," she said, her voice steady. "I am choosing my life." The soldiers backed, away completely unable to approach. The council, watching through surveillance, gasped. Reports flooded the ship. The untouchable star's barrier has become a weapon. It now protects her and the human at her side. No one can approach. For the first time, Zera felt a real connection. She reached out mentally, feeling Ethan's presence. The barrier around him flickered as he touched her hand. Not fully, not yet, but enough that she felt the warmth she had longed for all her life. It was real. She could feel it, not just see it. And in that moment, Zera understood something profound. Her power was never about keeping others out. It was about choosing who mattered, about connection, about trust. The next day, the Empress attempted a direct intervention, arriving aboard the cruiser with a fleet of ships. Her voice thundered through the communication system. "Zera, you will surrender Ethan and obey your duties. Your rebellion will end now." Zera's barrier flared in response, pulsing across the entire ship. It sent a wave of energy into the outer hull, signaling not just protection, but warning. The fleet trembled under the pulse. "Mother," Zera said, her voice calm but powerful, "I will not surrender what I choose. I will not live trapped behind a wall of fear and tradition. You may try to control me, but my shield is mine, and I am free." There was silence across the fleet. No one had ever heard a Caliph princess speak like that. In the following hours, Zera demonstrated full control of her barrier. She allowed Ethan to approach completely. His hands met hers through the shield, and this time, the energy accepted the touch. A soft pulse of warmth radiated through both of them. The council, watching, could only stare. The barrier was no longer a prison. It was a bridge. Zera turned to Ethan, her eyes shining. "You have shown me a way through. Not by force, not by destruction, but by understanding. And now," she smiled, "now I am truly free." Ethan grinned back. "Took you long enough, princess." They laughed together, the first real laughter Zera had felt in decades. The barrier shimmered around them like a living, breathing shield of light, a symbol of freedom and choice. The Empire could do nothing. Attempts to challenge her failed. No weapon could pierce the energy that responded to her will. No orders could compel her to surrender someone she trusted. Zera became more than a princess. She became a legend. Not because of fear, or tradition, or divinity, but because she had the courage to choose, and the wisdom to allow someone else to help her understand her own strength. Humans, once seen as weak and naive, now held a special place in the galaxy. Not because they were strong in weapons or numbers, but because they were brave in spirit, willing to see what others refused to see. Ethan, a simple mechanic from a distant planet, had done what the galaxy's greatest minds could not. He found a way through. Months later, the cruiser sailed through the stars. Zera stood on the observation deck, her barrier glowing softly, harmonizing with the hum of the ship. Ethan stood beside her, their hands brushing, the connection real and warm. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Regret?" she repeated. "No. I have felt more alive in these months than in all my life before. You showed me freedom, warmth, choice, and the courage to claim it. How could I regret that?" Ethan smiled. "Guess it's not just the barrier that's impenetrable anymore. You've got a human heart in there too." Zera laughed softly. "And it is stronger than any shield in the galaxy." They stood together, watching the stars stretch into light years. For the first time, Zahra felt fully herself. Not a symbol, not a weapon, not an untouchable star. Just Zahra, free.